Hello and welcome. Chris Principe here from publisher of Financial IT. And I'm so pleased to be at my favorite event of the year, which is Sibos, the event of Swift. And this year, Swift has chosen to bring us to an exciting location, which is Beijing, China. Not only the capital of China, but a financial capital, a business capital, and the first time that Swift has brought Sibos to China. So I'm so pleased to be here, and especially with a member of Swift themselves, Avanee.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
My pleasure. Please tell us a little bit about your remit in Swift and the things that Swift is doing for us.
So, as mentioned, my name is Avanee Gokhale, and I'm the global head for trade strategy at Swift. Swift, as you all know, is we move money, we move value around the world. We connect around 11,500 institutions, and to give you some very interesting numbers, the whole GDP of the world moves on our rails in over 3 days. So it's quite a eye-opening number. Now, my mandate in Swift is to focus on trade strategy, and what that means from a Swift perspective is everything that we can do to bring more standardization in the industry, to enable interoperability, and everything that we can do to bring better digitization from an end-to-end transaction perspective. So at a very high level, these are some of the things that we focus on, and some of the initiatives we are working on are all tailored to bring that forward.
Very interesting. And for me, as a person who's been involved in trade finance and really loves trade finance, bringing more standardization to this is got to be a benefit for the community. How do you do that?
So maybe what I might do is I might take a step back and talk a little bit more about what I'm seeing in the industry. And based on that, why are we doing certain things that we are looking to do in currently, but also as we look ahead. So if I start looking at the key trends that we see in the industry or some of the big innovations that are happening, there are 3 things that come to my mind. The first one is this focus on innovation, the focus on emerging technologies, and the fact that banks, organizations are actually getting on that digital journey faster than they have before. So if I look at the efforts to digitize trade, for example, it has moved faster in the last few years than it has moved in decades. And that for me is super interesting at the moment. And every part of the trade is getting digitized in one way or the other. So if I look at KYC and onboarding to the next part, which is document checking using AI, OCR, making processes efficient and faster, right to the whole digital documentation, and finally the payments, the settlements, where clients are now asking for faster payments, they're asking for more transparency, more access. We are seeing disruption and changes in that entire ecosystem, which according to me is very fascinating at the moment.
Yeah, and fascinating for me too. I mean, I remember, working and having large tables with piles of documents and pens and marking everything. And this is the tradition of trade finance bankers, So the digitization, I think, in this area has probably been slower than some of the other areas and more challenging because of the document-intensive nature of it. So how do you convert some, like old-timers like me to actually do something different?
And you're right. I mean, dominance of paper is one of the biggest challenges that we see in the industry right now. It's not an easy one to solve, I'll be honest about it. And it's mainly to do with the complexity of that ecosystem and the number of parties you have in that ecosystem. But I feel very positive about where we are going because there are a few different things. I mean, there is a change from a regulatory and legal perspective, which is happening from the perspective of MLETR and the countries adopting that. You're seeing various fintechs delivering solutions which will help go from paper to digital document. ICC, for example, has done some fantastic work on KTDDE and more of the data elements. And these are the areas where Swift wants to play a role to enable the movement of documents, to the movement of trade documents, EBLs, using the Swift rails. And we actually have done some really fantastic POCs and POVs in this area to show how we can use our interoperability technical framework to move documents around.
That certainly is challenging. And I mean, Swift originally was one that brought some standardization, the MT400s, the MT700s to trade. So it's really interesting for me to hear about two things that you mentioned, OCR and AI.
Mm-hmm.
So how are these being interwoven into what Swift is offering?
Yes, so Swift is looking at AI very closely. We are looking at AI from an internal perspective to see how we can enhance processes, but equally, we are looking at AI from the perspective of anomaly detection when it comes to payments and how we can benefit from the use of AI. So that's definitely an area which is of interest to Swift and to the industry. To your earlier question on standardization, it's a super important one, and it's something that we have been focused on for a while now, especially from the trade perspective. Swift, as you know, is a cooperative, so everything we do is in consultation with the industry through various working groups and the banks that we engage with. And one of the things that we have done over the last 1 year is to develop trade and, guarantee and SPLC APIs, specifically in the corporate to bank segment, to standardize that segment. And what we really hope that this can bring to the community is better, richer structured data, especially because these APIs are ISO compatible. So from a timing perspective, this is just great because this is in line with the payment migration to ISO 20022. So it's the richer structured data of these APIs, but equally the ability for corporates to be scalable when they connect to various banks, especially in a product like guarantees, as you know, which is very commoditized as a product. And from a banking perspective, to enable them to leverage on the Swift network where possible and ensure that they can have that resiliency and identity and security of our network. And these are the few value-added services we do want to bring to the industry.
And it's interesting you mentioned guarantees, especially the standby letters of credit, because in the past, when I was doing this business, we would free format so much, and Swift brought some standardization to that, which really helps the industry and helps the movement of that, and allows you to start getting digitalized. Mm. What can we expect maybe next in this area from Swift?
Yeah. So Swift being a standards body, we will continue to investigate and invest and see how we can continue to add value in this space. What we're doing right now is to ensure that we can drive the adoption of these APIs, because that is crucial before we move on to the next thing. And at this point, we are working with our community to raise awareness on these APIs and the importance of standards. Because at the end of the day, if we look at the fragmentation in the industry, we look at the digital islands which are sprouting. One way to increase streamlining and to reduce friction and to reduce fragmentation is standardization. And that's really one area the industry needs to focus on. And I'll give you some statistics which I read recently. When I read this recent report that IMF published, and what they said was the economic cost of fragmentation can go up to 7% of the GDP, which is an eye-watering number. So I really think that as an industry, we need to come together. We need to own this piece and drive the change.
Well, certainly Swift's leadership for more than 50 years has helped to accelerate the whole industry. So for you, what about Sibos do you find interesting and exciting?
Oh, I love Sibos. So it's such an amalgamation of clients and partners and friends and colleagues from all over the world. So it's a great event, and especially for this Sibos, we've had some really fantastic big issue debates where we've spoken about collaboration and inclusive economies and how we can move towards instant frictionless. And there were fantastic panels, fantastic speakers. We've had InnoTribe, where we are talking more about innovation and what's coming next in terms of new technologies. But equally, it's really nice to meet everyone. And we have some fantastic panels today on diversity, inclusion, ESG. So lots of things to look forward to.
Yeah, no, I truly agree. I mean, I've been coming to Sibos since last century. It's truly the highlight of my year to be able to be here. So now that we're here at Sibos, and already so much has happened here, so much information, announcements, and there's still more to come, which is amazing. What do you see for the future from Swift,
Mhm.
but more specifically, maybe in trade? What direction is the industry going?
So there are a few areas that we will continue to look at. One is on how we can enable a future-ready ecosystem, which is underpinned by standards, but looks at interoperability and digitization. And an important part of this is data as well, and how we can leverage on the data to provide more transparency to our community. How can we give better analytics? But equally, how we can give them a better client experience and really uplift that experience for our end-to-end customers. So those are the few areas that we will continue to work on.
Well, I'll tell you, the future is exciting.
It's bright.
You know, the trade for me has always been exciting, but this really moves in such a new direction. You're at the front of that, leading it. We're so pleased to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great. Chris Principe, Financial IT.